From the nation's capital, Monrovia. Good evening and welcome to King's Newsroom, a 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Today is Wednesday, December 24th, 2025, and I'm Newton to representing stories we're following this evening. The Movement for Progressive Change political leader, Timothy Freeman, calls on members of the 55th National Legislature to initiate an impeachment proceedings against President Joseph Boakai over what he described as Liberian leaders' failure in oversight, selective discipline, and questionable management of state resources. President Joseph Boakai grants executive clemency to 72 inmates at the Monrovia Central Prison, calls on to release individuals to conduct themselves in a manner consistent with the Liberian laws and societal norms. The House Speaker Richard Kong challenges critics in the alleged fraud and marital saga to seek legal redress and quote, if they have legitimate claims against him, says using media platforms to denigrate his reputation will offer no solution to the matter. These plus the news bulletin, our international developments are our package. We are taking a very short break to be right back. Thanks for rejoining. At this juncture, we cross over to Sam Andrews with the news bulletin.
President Joseph Boakai has granted executive clemency to 72 inmates at the Monrovia Central Prison. According to a release from the executive mansion, those granted clemency include 70 Liberian nationals and 2 foreign nationals from Guinea. The action is in accordance with Article 59 of the 1986 Constitution, which empowers the president to grant executive clemency, including pardons and commutations of sentence. Speaking on behalf of President Boakai during the ceremony held Wednesday at the Central Prison, Justice Minister Oswald Twe said the decision was intended to restore the civil rights of individuals who had been convicted of public offenses. Minister Twe explained that the release of the 72 inmates, comprising 70 males and 2 females, was based on their demonstrated good behavior while incarcerated, as well as a thorough review of the recommendations submitted through the established legal and administrative procedures. He emphasized that President Boakai's action reflects the government's commitment to balancing justice with compassion, particularly during the holiday seasons. The Justice Minister further admonished the released individuals to conduct themselves in a manner consistent with societal norms and become law-abiding and productive members of society. The political leader of the Movement for Progressive Change, Simeon Freeman, has called on members of the 55th Legislature to initiate impeachment proceedings against President Joseph Boakai, citing what he described as grave failures in oversight, selective discipline, and questionable management of public resources. Mr. Freeman's call comes amid growing public concern over transparency and accountability within the unit part of the government, particularly surrounding alleged off-budget expenditure and controversial budget priorities. Simeon Freeman accused President Boakai of applying double standards in enforcing discipline within his administration. He added that while the president has publicly emphasized integrity and accountability, his senior officials close to the president appeared insulated from consequences. According to Simeon Freeman, such inaction undermines public confidence and weakens the credibility of the government's anti-corruption posture. House Speaker Richard Kong has publicly responded to recent allegations involving him and his alleged wife, Cecilia Kong over a family dispute that has sparked this debate about accountability, power, and the expectation placed on holding of public office. In a statement released on his social media page, following media reports that link to Mrs. Cecilia Kongpa, the Speaker of the legislature, urged anyone with claims against him to seek legal redress rather than public discussion. He noted using a media platform to denigrate him and damaging his reputation told the public dispute would not find any solution and only exposes their malicious intent towards him as Speaker. Former Liberian President George Weah has delivered his Christmas message to the people of Liberia, emphasizing the significance of the season. In his official Facebook post on Wednesday, the former president urged Christians in Liberia and around the world to embrace the festive season as a period of spiritual renewal, reflection, and reverence. He described Christmas as a time for giving and remembering God's goodness despite the challenges faced the nation and its people. The former Liberian President George Weah further noted that the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ serves as a reminder to Christians of God's enduring presence and love for humanity. He also encouraged Liberians to express gratitude during the festive season through acts of kindness toward their neighbors and through contributions to national unity and progress. At the same time, the political leader of the Coalition for Democratic Change commended partisans for their resilience and continued commitment to the party. Several Liberian citizens have expressed concern over their unreadiness for the festive season, describing the current economic situation as the worst they have experienced in years. Speaking to journalists Wednesday at Rally Time Market on the United Nations Drive and Johnson Streets in central Monrovia, the citizens blamed the government of President Boakai for what they described as an economic quagmire affecting their daily livelihoods. In separate views, some marketers said that during past administrations, they found it easy to sustain their families, but accused the current government of introducing policies that have increased hardship across the country. Prison Fellowship Liberia, with funding from the United States-based Camp David International, has organized a camp for 350 prison children in Marshall McGibby County. The fellowship country director, Reverend Francis Scully, disclosed that 70 caregivers have been recruited to provide care for the children. White Samaritan Purse will be providing making medical practitioners to provide medication. The Southeastern Alliance of Liberia has condemned the tragic and untimely killing of a Liberian student studying in India. The incident has sparked the Liberian community at home and has brought profound grief of the family, friends, and compatriots of the deceased. Green Bassa County administration, under the leadership of Superintendent Caillou Johnson, has acquired 500 new customized chairs for the Unification Pavilion and the County Administrative Building. The move is intended to improve comfort, organization, and professionalism during official county activities. The administration said the initiative reflects its commitment to improving public service delivery and creating a more diversified or dignified environment for public programs, county events, and administrative functions across Grand Bassa County. The president of the National Rubber Brokers and Farmers Union of Liberia, James Saikie, has ended a one-day engagement with officials of the union in Bond County aimed at addressing critical challenges facing Liberia's rubber sector. Speaking during the engagement, Saikie emphasized that the National Rubber Brokers and Farmers Union of Liberia is aimed to protect the interests of small and vulnerable rubber farmers, local brokers, and Liberian exporters, whom he described as key entrepreneurs in the rubber economy. He noted that while Liberia is rich in natural resources as gold, diamonds, iron ore, and rubber, the government has failed to adequately regulate and add value to these resources, particularly in agriculture. And empowerment women in Riverside County. The Ruth Coker Collins Development Foundation for Women and Girls and Youth Empowerment certificated 180 trained traditional midwives for their dedication to improving maternal and child birth across the county. The program, which saw over 200 parading the street of Yakpa Town, was described as Ruth Coker Collins Development Foundation Administration of Enduring Commitment to Grassroots Development and Women's Empowerment through the impactful work of Ruth Coker Collins, speaking during a well-attended ceremony in Riverside County. Former Public Works Minister and Chief Executive Officer of Ruth Coker Collins Development Foundation, Ruth Coker Collins, reaffirmed the foundation's vision of reaching underdeserved communities with particular focus on women, girls, and frontline health workers.
Sam, Andrew's 15 News Bulletin. The News Bulletin is a regular featured here on King's Newsroom. Or if you just joining us, a reminder to listen to King's Newsroom, a 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Today is Wednesday, December 24th, 2025, and I'm Newton Tokpa presenting stories we follow in this evening. The Movement for Progressive Change political leader, Simon Freeman, calls on members of the 55th National Legislature to initiate an impeachment proceedings against President Joseph Boakai over what he described as Liberian leaders' failure in oversight, selective discipline, and questionable management of state resources. President Joseph Boakai grants executive clemency to 72 inmates at the Monrovia Central Prison, calls on the released individuals to conduct themselves in a manner consistent with the Liberian laws and societal norms. The House Speaker Richard Cohn challenges critics in the alleged fraud and marital saga to seek legal redress in court if they have legitimate claims against him, says using media platforms to denigrate his reputation would offer no solution to the problem. These are stories we're following here this evening of King's News. Well, we are taking a very short break. When we come back, we'll bring you the voices of the news makers. Thanks for rejoining and welcome back. On our first development here this evening, but ahead of the first development here this evening, former Liberian President George Weah has delivered his Christmas message to the people of Liberia, emphasizing the significance of the season. In an official Facebook post on Wednesday, the former Liberian leader urged Christians in Liberia and around the world to embrace the festive season as a period of spiritual renewal, reflection, and reverence. He described Christmas as a time of giving and for remembering God's goodness despite the challenges facing the nation and its people. The former Liberian president further noted that the celebration of the birth of Christ serves as a reminder to Christians of God's enduring presence and love for humanity, and also encouraged Liberians to express gratitude during the festive season through acts of kindness toward their neighbors and through contributions to national unity and progress. On this one, the political leader of the Movement for Progressive Change, Simeon Freeman, has called on members of the 55th National Legislature to initiate impeachment proceedings against President Joseph Boakai, citing what he described as grave failures in oversight, selective discipline, and questionable management of public resources. Freeman's call comes amid growing public concern over transparency and accountability within the United Party-led government, particularly surrounding alleged off-budget expenditures and controversial budget priorities. Freeman accused President Boakai of applying double standards in enforcing discipline within his administration. He added that while the president has publicly emphasized integrity and accountability, his senior officials close to the president appeared insultive and does not account for state resources.
47 years experience, he came to power on two issues. One, experience. Two, harmonization. Since he became president, no discussion about harmonization. People's salaries that were cut basically is where he is. But you know, the FOIA project raises a lot of things. The first thing, the Ministry of Information said that it was a Mano River Union project. Research was done, and then there was realized that it wasn't. Then they came back through the very Ministry of Information and said it's a government of Liberia project. Now, the first question it raises, that project value at 10 million, it did not go through PPCC. There was no public bidding, but it was given to a contractor that is a nephew of the president. Then the president himself in an opportunity comes out and says, oh, I didn't know about the project. So the president lacks administrative ineptitude. Because here is the thing. Are you saying that in your government people can take $10 million, spend it, and you know nothing about it? It raises a lot more questions. Okay, if people spend $10 million on a project, what have you done with those people that have access to that kind of money? Is Joseph Boakai saying to us that people in his government have access to resources, significant resources, and can spend it the way they want, how they like, and he knows nothing about it? That in itself is an admission of lack of capacity to lead. It's a serious question, and our legislators should look at that, and that should be a basis for impeachment, because you are admitting that. But on the one hand, the same Boakai parades himself as somebody who is firing people for inappropriate behavior. But people around him are the very conductors of inappropriate behavior, and he does nothing. I would have respected a president that said, I've identified those who spend money on this project. These are the people. I'm firing these people. That's one. Two, I would have respected Boakai to say these people will go to court to show us where they got this money from and how this contract was awarded without approval. The PFM law of Liberia is clear. Every cent collected for Liberia must go in the consolidated fund. Before it is spent, it must go through a budget and it must be allotted, approved by the legislature. If you spend $10 million on a government project, which institution funded it? It also lends credence to some of the things people have said.
He's the political leader of the Movement for Progressive Change, Simeon Freeman. They're speaking. Several Liberian citizens have expressed concern over their unreadiness for the festive season, describing the current economic situation as the worst they have experienced in years. Speaking to journalists today at the Rallytown Market, located between the UN Drive and Johnson Street in central Monrovia, the citizen blamed the administration of President Joseph Boakai for what they described as an economic quagmire affecting the daily livelihoods. In separate views, some marketers said during the past administrations, they found it easier to sustain their families, but accused the current government of introducing policies that have increased hardship across the country.
I don't know what you can do. I see chicken in the pan.
Selling the market.
You selling the market?
Yeah.
What are you selling?
I selling the chicken.
So you can come buy it from Rallytown and carry where?
Carry I go try. I go sell now. Why when CC coming, we used to sell 2-3 cartons, 4 chicken I try. Yeah, go sell.
Put it down, this year. That only 4 chicken.
Only 4 chicken. Why I can try?
That 4 chicken, yeah.
Yeah, I only go sell.
And you say
it's not easy to get 4 chicken. Yeah, go try. The 4 chicken. Yeah, go sell my children. So now you get Christmas to wear.
Alfred Tamahali is my name.
Alfred Tamahali, I can see you really want to talk to her because saying you can just packing. How everything?
Everything we talk about, thank you.
The business.
The business with that, we didn't complain. The complaints that we complain, who will carry to that only go. So we don't get nowhere to complain. We only put the go things should be fine.
Traffic going?
Traffic is going. The traffic going, but the issue there is it's not easy.
What do you mean?
The police, they disturbing all too much.
What?
You got to realize you don't have parking area. Parking area anywhere realize as not stop. Either city police or CTP or PSU man. You can't sit down here to get to go parking. The parking is not telling you what they parking you for. I think if you see somebody parking a place and that's where you park, and you not post somebody that say no parking and no stopping here.
Some Liberian citizens expressing dissatisfaction about the harsh economic situation in the country as they celebrate the festive season. President Joseph Walker has granted executive clemency to 72 inmates at the Monrovia Central Prison. According to a release from the executive mansion, those granted clemency include 70 Liberian nationals and 2 foreign nationals from the Republic of Guinea. The action is in accordance with Article 59 of the 1986 Liberian Constitution, which empowers the president to grant executive clemency, including pardons and commutations of sentence. Speaking on behalf of the president during the ceremony held Wednesday at the Monrovia Central Prison, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General Oswald Tuet said the decision is intended to restore the civil rights of individuals who had been convicted of public offenses. Minister Tuet explained that the release of the 72 inmates, comprising 70 males and 2 females, was based on their demonstrated good behavior while incarcerated, as well as a thorough review of recommendations submitted to establish legal administrative procedures.
That in accordance with the authority vested under the 1986 Liberian Constitution, as amended specifically Chapter 5, Article 59, and Chapter 25 of the Criminal Procedure Law, I am here to announce on behalf of His Excellency Joseph Newman Brecker the granting of pardon to selected group of inmates. This authority allows the President of the Republic of Liberia to grant reprieves and pardons and restore civil rights following conviction for offenses, with the exception of those convicted on the penalty of impeachment. This year, the President decided to grant pardons to 70 Liberian nationals and 2 foreign nationals. Those being pardoned include that 70 males and 2 females. And within that group, there are 2 juveniles. All of them were convicted of non-capital offenses. In compiling this year's list of recipients for pardons, careful consideration was given to various factors. The individuals pardoned have served 50% of their sentences, and others have completed their sentences or remain in custody due to restitution obligations. Sometimes restitution of a very small amount, $100 US dollar, $250 US dollar. And you can't pay that money, even though you serve your sentence, you will stay in jail and they apply a portion. It's $25 then, $25 every month. So they prolong your sentence. We also took into account the circumstances of older inmates and those suffering from terminal illnesses. I want to congratulate the committee set up by the AMR or within the Bureau of Correction that constituted the group that looked into this kind of thing.
His Justice Minister Oswald Tuet, speaking on behalf of the Liberian leader, President Joseph Walker. What if you just joining us, a reminder, you're listening to King's Newsroom, a 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. Stories we follow in this evening: the Movement for Progressive Change political leader, Simon Freeman, calls on members of the 55th National Legislature to initiate an impeachment proceedings against President Joseph Walker over what he described as the Liberian leader's failure in oversight, selective discipline, and questionable management of state resources. President Joseph Walker grants executive clemency to 72 inmates at the Monrovia Central Prison, calls on the released individuals to conduct themselves in a manner consistent with Liberian laws and societal norms. House Speaker Richard Coon challenges critics in the alleged fraud and marital saga to seek legal redress and quote if they have legitimate claims against him, says using media platforms to denigrate his reputation would offer no solution to the matter. And away from Liberia, Libyan army chief has been killed in an air crash in Turkey, Libya's prime minister has said. These are stories we're following here this evening on King's Newsroom. We are taking another short break. When we come back, we continue with more voices on the program. Thanks for rejoining. On this one now, Prison Fellowship Liberia, with funding from the United States-based Camp David International, has organized a camp for 350 prisoners, children in Marshall, Margibi County. The fellowship country director, Reverend Francis Cody, disclosed that 70 caregivers have been recruited to provide care for children, while the Samaritan Purse will be making medical practitioners to provide medication. Addressing a press conference in Peaceville, Reverend Cody explained that during the campaign, the children will be taught about significance of Holy Bible and civil responsibility.
There are people in jail who don't deserve to be there. Tourism Fellowship Liberia will be taking close to 350 children or prisoners children around the country, coming from different countries: Mosorito, Bom, Bassa, Margibi, and Bombing, who are going to be on this camp for 1 week. It's going to be a wonderful time where we're going to have wonderful time with them in the Lord, where we're going to have wonderful time of festive activities, eating 3 times a day, play all the games that you think about. So it's going to be a very wonderful time. So we're going to send bosses all in the countries that I've just named, bring them on board here, and then we're going to take them to this camp where we're going to host them for 1 week where we're going to celebrate. We think that it's just very much prudent at this festive time to bring them aboard beside paying their school fees, to say they are so important. Even in the society, communities, neighborhood have labeled them with some names. We think they have values and we wanted to discover those values. They're going to sleep there. They're going to spend the day. We're going to have celebrations. Already recruited over 70 volunteers who are going to serve as counselors, our mentors, and they will play different roles. We have hired a catering group that are going to be catering for them for they'll be eating 3 times in the day. And then they have caregivers that are going to be providing care for each of these kids, age 5 all the way to 20. We're going to have worship time, do some exercises, do some basketballs, do volleyballs, and then play games, make jokes, make dance. And I want to encourage the representative for Margibi and that of the senator, the senior senator, who happened to be Honorable Nathaniel McGill. We will hope to invite him to maybe speak to the children. I'm going to place a call to him, if he has the time, to come and speak to the kids.
Meanwhile, the Prison Fellowship Liberia Country Director has made a passionate appeal to President Joseph Boakai to use his constitutional power to grant executive clemency to well-behaved prisoners in order to celebrate the new year with their families. According to Reverend Colley, the Prison Fellowship Liberia is willing to work with the Ministry of Justice in identifying some of the well-behaved prisoners for consideration on the presidential executive clemency.
A country. There are people who deserve to be there because they have committed crimes. The only thing we can take government, let them go through prosecution, due process. When they go to due process, that's fine. But when you keep people in jail without due process, you have violated their right. And so if you think that you have violated people's right, then it would just be good to I don't want to be implicated by giving them clemency. And government, for the president, I'm so grateful that he did well the last time. We want to just make a very heartfelt appeal to the government, to the president's office. that please remember those in jail, right? Remember them at this festive season. Give somebody a day with their family. I mean, somebody who deserves it. We appeal for multiple clemency. We want to carry the Minister of Justice to involve us because we work with prisoners. We know them. We know who behaving well. We know who have been transformed. Including us in the selections will help government to identify who need rehabilitation or who don't need rehabilitation. We hope to see that the president will listen to our plea to again do his constitutional duty. It's not a demand, but we just appeal that if he can use that constitutional duty by giving clemency to people who deserve it.
Reverend Francis Colley is the country director of Prison Fellowship Liberia. They are speaking. Grand Bassa County Administration, under the leadership of Superintendent Caillou Johnson, has acquired 500 new customers chairs for the Unification Pavilion and the County Administrative Building. The move is intended to improve comfort, organization, and professionalism during official county activities. The administration says the initiative reflects its commitment to improving public service delivery and creating a more dignified environment for public programs, county events, administrative functions across Grand Bassa County. Speaking on the procurement process, the County Development Officer, Honorable Moses Bensogat Henry, stated that the purchase followed all legal and procurement procedures and stressed that the process was transparent and aimed at thus ensuring accountability and value for public funds.
When she was superintendent, her plan was to make sure this building be the best. That was her plan. And after she passed, the president of the Liberia Senate talked to the president that the building should be renovated before the next superintendent body arrived. And at that time, the president accepted our request and sent the Minister of State to make sure that we renovate this building. The renovation starts immediately, and at the time, we have the funeral in here. So we want to say thank you to the president and the President of the Republic of Liberia. After we have our superintendent in, Caillou Johnson, he looked at the development of the fairground. And he said, no, but we have to extend the beautification of the fairground. Now, what was the important thing here? There was no chair. So, in our budget, we placed in 7,500 United States dollars for the purchase of this chair. 500 chairs. 7,500 United States dollars in our budget to purchase 500 of these chairs. So, today, finally, the chair arrived. And the superintendent is out. He will come immediately before the use of the chair. He will turn the chair over to the citizen of Grand Bassa County before it be used. So you know that the president is working today. We ourselves should work. Nobody should sit and enjoy Christmas, but to make sure that the development continues. So to the people of Bassa, your 500 chairs we spoke of, they have already arrived, and we want to say thank you to the Bassa Legislative Caucus. Thank you to the county council that approved the budget, and we are very happy today to make sure that our chairs have arrived through the vendor that won the bid. So we want to say that if the superintendent arrives after the Christmas, we will turn this chair over to the people of Bassa.
We are interested in knowing the total cost of the chair.
I said the total cost of this chair is 7,500 United States dollars.
Where were they purchased?
They were purchased. The vendor said China.
Who won the bid?
Huh? No. I'm talking about the cost in the budget for the purchase of the chair is 7,500. So if we get the delivery receipt, we know the transportation cost, everything. They're doing the turning over ceremony to the people of Bassa. You will know the total cost of the spend.
I did hear what you said. A bid was thrown out, and then somebody won. What's the name of the entity that won the bid?
The entity that
company that won a bid to bring the chair.
Is the Igbo Labran Howard. Labran Howard won the bid.
Was there anything published for the
He's Grand Parcel County Development Officer Moses Bensongat Henry, yes, speaking. And away from Liberia, the Libyan army chief has been killed in an air crash in Turkey, Libya's prime minister has said. General Mohammed Ali Ahmed Ad Haddad was on board a Falcon 50 aircraft flying out of the Turkish capital Ankara on Tuesday evening. He was killed along with 4 other military officials and 3 crew members. Turkish Interior Minister Ali Yalikaya said signal with the business jet was lost at 12:52 local time, about 42 minutes after it took off from Ankara's airport. The Tripoli-bound jet had issued an emergency landing request before contact was lost. The aircraft's wreckage was later found southwest of Ankara, and its voice recorder and black box had been recovered. The emergency services are still trying to retrieve the bodies. An investigation is underway into the cause of the crash. In a post on X, Yalikaya wrote that police has spotted the debris of bodies near the village of Kasikaya in Hamana district in Libya. Abdul Hamid, the prime minister of the country's internationally recognized government of national unity, said he had received news of the deaths of General Haddad and other senior Libyan military officials on board the jet. On that note, I would like to go home this evening on this edition of the program King's Newsroom, a 45 minutes news presentation about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of the world. But just before we go home, let's remind you of stories we've been following. The Movement for Progressive Change political leader, Simeon Freeman, calls on members of the 55th National Legislature to initiate an impeachment proceedings against President Joseph Boakai over what he described as Liberian leaders' failures in oversight, selective discipline, and questionable management of state resources. President Joseph Boakai grants executive clemency to 72 inmates at the Monrovia Central Prison, calls on the released individuals to conduct themselves in the manner consistent with Liberian laws and societal norms. House Speaker Richard Cohn challenges critics in the alleged fraud and marital saga to seek legal redress. They have legitimate claims against him, says using media platforms to denigrate his reputation would offer no solution to the problem. Away from Liberia, the Libyan army chief has been killed in an air crash in Turkey, Libya's prime minister has said. These are stories to follow here. This Ireno King's Newsroom. Sam Andrews was here with the news bulletin. I would like to say many thanks to all of our reporters, correspondents, news editors who helped in making this package. Our sources that are still join us tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, at which time we'll be here with another edition of the program King's Newsroom. Thanks for listening and watching. My name is Newton Toba. Goodbye.